let's go. I'm on a journey to discover the truth. Living life in recovery is lovely. You got the power in you. Surround yourself with positive energy. Judges hitting people with provocative penalties. Need to make a change. Advocate to change the laws. Prove to people that it's not insane. When you stand behind a cause, I'm here to speak about the pain. Recover loud to normalize the disease that's been killing all my friends and my family. The time is now to let it all go and recover loud. The benefit is healthy people, family and friends that never have to overdose ever again. Never have to plead out to a lesser offense. I'm proud to say that I recover loud. I never thought I could, but I'm so proud that I discovered how to live my life again, controlling my own destiny. I needed recovery, I still need it desperately. Addiction never defined my identity. I recover loud, here to tell my own story. I recover proud, save a life of like 40. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud. I recover loud, here to tell my own story. I recover proud, save a life of like 40. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud. I recover loud. I recover loud. I recover loud. I recover loud.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Recover Loud. I'm your host, Mike Paddleford, and I recover loud. Today we're filming from Portland Media Center. This is where we first started our show last season, and I was grateful for the opportunity to come to Portland and use the studio again to meet with my friend Nikki Curtis. When Nikki was able to find gratitude for the things in her life, she was able to stay on the path of recovery, and by giving back to others, she's showing them that they can do this too. So watch as Nikki and I recover loud. Nikki, welcome to Recover Loud. I appreciate you coming in today to share your story, which 10 years is a long time. And from what I've heard of your recovery, there's a lot of service work involved. A lot of people find that service is what keeps them focused on getting better themselves and helping other people. You know, it really gives us benefit. But your life hasn't always been for other people. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like for you during your times of use? What did that look like?
Yeah, I think about the last year of my use mostly when I think about my using, and when it got really bad. I was in a trailer in Presque Isle, Maine, and I lived with, my boyfriend at the time, and my son lived with me, and I think about all of the just the horrors that were going on in my active use. Like the last year involved a lot of infections that I had, and then I ended up just hanging out with the wrong people and I had a million cats in my house. It was just like really squalor.
Yeah, and so you are from the county.
Yes.
Which, today we're in Portland. You live down here.
Yes.
And you work for?
I work for Journey Magazine.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I really appreciate Journey Magazine because they do, what I try to do with Recover Loud. We're making recovery visible, we're sharing hope and some resources that can help people, to find recovery and to stay alive today. So when you decided to get into recovery, what did that really take for you?
In that last year, really, I had gone through the medical stuff going on. I was almost arrested by the DEA, but it was actually a moment that I had with my son where he knew that I was lying about my use, and he was calling me out on it. And he had a way that he used to do that, and he would have me swear on my father's grave, and I lied in that moment, and he knew that I was lying. And I didn't realize in the whole time that he had only used that to get me to tell the truth, not because he didn't know. Like, he knew that I was lying. He wanted me to know that I was lying. And when I lied to him that day, the look on his face and that moment of sheer like disgust and despair and all that made me realize I had to do something different at that time.
And did you do something the next day? Did it take some time?
Honestly, I don't even know exactly. I think the last part of my using was such a blur and a whirlwind. At the end of my using, I was doing bath salts, and I was just very spun out all the time. So I really don't remember, like, my time frames are very far off.
So that would have been around 2012 that you were...
Yeah, that was in 2012. I know that it was within a month or so after his and my conversation.
Yeah.
I had another episode where I couldn't stop using, and I had been up all night, and I was awake the next morning. I was still awake when the daylight came, and I was like, I can't keep doing this. And I called a 1-800 number, and I don't remember what it was, but I remember crying to that woman, and she stayed on the phone with me for like an hour at least, and talked to me about all the possible ways, and talked about rehab and talked about those things. And I did some research, and I found the rehab that I wanted, and I called my mom immediately, and I said, here's my intake appointment, can you bring me? And she was like, absolutely.
Yeah. And so where was that rehab?
Crossroads in Windham, Maine.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what was that experience at rehab like?
I was actually there for 3 days, and another girl came in. I had been there for 3 days, and another girl came in, and she thought I was the staff. So like, for me, it was the opportunity to step into the role that I wanted to be in, and that was to be a helper. Like, that was my role.
Yeah.
And I did that from the minute I got into rehab.
Now, were you much of a helper before?
I think so. I think there were lots of points in my life where I was a helper. Before my addiction got really bad and everything, went to, hell, I guess. I was in college. I remember being in college and being part of like the math club and the math honor society, and like guiding people in stuff that was going on. I always was like a part of something and helping other people. I love tutoring. I like to do those types of things. So helping is in my nature, yes.
So when you were in the rehab at Crossroads, what was it? What do they do there? Is it group counseling? Is it 12-step programs? How do they?
Yeah. So in the first 15 days, I was in the 28-day program, and they graduated me from it to send me to the. At the time, it was like a halfway house, because I knew I needed a lot more work than just 28 days of rehab. So the 28-day part was pretty standard. We had groups throughout the day, and then they would take us to meetings in the evening and stuff. They introduced us to the first 3 steps, the 12-step program. They kind of exposed us to that. They hooked us up to a therapist if we needed a therapist, and so I'd like the basic, I think, rehab experience.
So, and I know you know it, but what are the first 3 steps?
First 3 steps? Oh man, my first 3 steps is I am powerless over my addiction, and my life has become unmanageable, and there was no doubt in my mind when I got to rehab that was true. My second step of knowing that the way I was doing it wasn't working, and that there was a power greater than myself that was going to be the thing to help me. And it really, initially it started out as the rehab, and then turning my will over because I wanted to run the show, and the way I was running the show was not working. So it was a lot of surrender for me.
Yeah, and that first step's really important for a lot of people, accepting that what they're doing isn't working, and, they have no control, and the addiction or substance itself has taken over.
Yes.
We lose all the ability to make smart decisions. Everything's focused on the substance, and it leads us to doing all kinds of things that we wouldn't normally do. I was talking with a woman this morning, and she got to a point in her life where she realized that she wasn't capable of taking care of her kids, and sent them to her moms. And it's hard for people to understand, I imagine, that people send their kids somewhere else, but honestly, knowing that it's safer somewhere else is a decision that that acceptance of the issue, that's really, it's big, and understanding that we have no control, and that we can't do it alone, is really the first step to really getting somewhere. We can't fix it if we don't admit it. And there's a lot of people out there that can't get to that first step, and even in those programs, it takes them a long time to accept that they can't control their life. I know my life was that way. And was that difficult for you to accept?
Surrender was the worst. We had a notebook that we had to journal in every day, and one of it was to pick the recovery topic of the day that you struggled with and to write about it and to do that. And surrender was mine over and over again. I really believed that I was supposed to figure this out. I used to tell a lot of people, if I had $1 for every time I said I'll figure it out, or I have to figure it out, or I'm gonna figure it out, I'd be super rich.
Yeah. Yeah, and I used to think that, I will do something to make this better. I can regain control. If I just get a job, if I get a vehicle so I can start doing the things that I want to do. And ultimately what happened is, I might have got the job, but I'd lose it. Or I'd get the car and I'd wreck it, So even though I was trying, accepting that there's nothing I can personally do that's going to make this better without seeking help and turning it over. So what other kinds of things did you learn during your rehab stay?
Well, just on the surrender piece, that surrender wasn't admitting defeat. Surrender was joining the winning team.
Yeah.
That actually helped me a lot to know that it's kind of like what you were just saying about the woman who had chose to give up. Like, she surrendered her children, to somebody like the winning side until she was ready to get there. That made me think of that. Some of the other things that I really learned was I needed to keep things simple, that I tend to complicate things, and I am not going to get everything I want. Like I used to have if I believe it, I can achieve it, and I believe that that's true to a point, but it's not a guarantee.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, I believed I could figure out how to stop using, and I couldn't until somebody else helped me.
Yeah, and even today, I learned that we can make a plan, we can make attempts, we can do the work, and it doesn't always work out the way we want it to. And we have to accept that. I know when I was using, I couldn't accept that, and I would fight and scream and cry, and today I can, just look at it, learn the lesson, and move on. And when it comes to helping people, over and over, I learned that lesson. So while you're there, you must have learned some coping skills to deal with situations in life instead of turning to a substance. Is there anything you can think of that you might still do today that you learned there that helps?
Actually, prayer is a big part of my program, and I did learn that at rehab. I learned it through the 12-step work, or the mutual support work that I was doing, and I started practicing it, and it helped me to not have to do anything, because it would turn it over to something else. So it took a lot of pressure off of me that I had to do something to make it right, or I had to figure it out. Like, I don't have to figure it out. I'm gonna pray about it and turn it over and wait. So that was something I learned. I learned that just stopping and pausing and taking a really deep breath and focusing on my breathing was really, really helpful, because my anxiety usually comes from a place of not breathing properly, and when I would stop and do that, it would slow my brain down, so that would help a lot. Not really meditating, but more just breathing. Yeah, I think that's it for what I could remember.
Yeah.
From rehab.
So at the end of that 28 days, what was the next step for you?
So they graduated me in 15 days, and they sent me to the halfway house, because they knew I was going to be there for a while. And there I had to ask permission for everything, and I really struggled. I was 40 years old in a rehab, having to ask 26-year-old woman to come help me outside, to go out for a cigarette with me. I had to ask these things, and I really struggled with asking help. So that was a big portion of the time that I was at the halfway house, was asking for help.
And how long were you there?
I was at the halfway house for, I got there on August 3rd, and I got discharged on September 24th, 26th. I kind of broke a rule. I didn't get high, but I had a hard time with the rules that they had. Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually, when I went to rehab, went to a 6-month rehab, and they kicked me out after 3 months. Not because I used, but I just wasn't getting it.
Yeah.
And then I went on to sober living, and again, I got kicked out of there after 3 months, and it was really just not accepting what I was learning, and not putting into practice. I wasn't using, but I still wasn't doing the right things, and it actually took me living in my car for almost a year to really start practicing that stuff and understanding, the benefits of all that stuff that I'd read in the books. And I mean, I can still be the same jerk, without the substances as I was with. And, I had to figure it out, because if I continued on that path, eventually I probably would have turned back, because things weren't going the way I thought they should, and honestly, my recovery, acceptance and gratitude were my 2 greatest lessons. Today you probably got a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah.
What are you grateful for today?
I'm grateful that my mom is getting to watch this be recorded right now. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
Whether that ends up in the video or not, I'm okay with that. I am grateful that I have relationships with people today, that I am able to communicate my needs and my wants and my desires and know that I'll be okay whether I get them or not. That's something I never did before. I'm grateful for the job that I have. I'm grateful that I can walk through fear and try things that I've never tried before, and I get to do that in the work that I'm doing with Journey Magazine. I left a stable job, to live out a dream.
Yeah. So it's been 10 years that you've been in recovery. What is it you do? I mean, even after 10 years, you're still working your own recovery. What is it that you do today to make sure that you're not going back out?
My number one thing is to always be honest about where I'm at. So I have to in order to do that, stay connected to people who really know me well, so that when something's going on, I can be honest about it. I still go to meetings. I don't go to a ton, but I go to a couple meetings and stay connected. I'm really involved in my church, and I help with disciple women in my church. So it's almost like a form of sponsoring, but in the Bible, which is awesome.
Right.
And being of service at church, that's my big thing. I help lead the volunteers there, and I make sure to have fun. I make sure to have fun in my recovery. I stay in gratitude. Actually, I have 2 women that I've been on a text loop with for almost 2 years, and we share 3 gratitudes a day. Each of us share 3 gratitudes a day, and we've been doing that for almost 2 years.
Yeah.
So.
And I remember, we used to get up in the morning at my rehab, and we'd all sit around the table before breakfast, before anything, and just go around the room and just pick something, And in the beginning, it was always, the obvious. I'm grateful to be alive today, because had I kept using, I may not have been.
Right.
And then as we go, we start, appreciating more and more, and it's the finer things, And today I could list 100 things each morning, and it's really, it's kind of special. It makes me feel good to acknowledge the things that, I have no control over, but they affect me, and they allow me to live the life I live today. So throughout your 10 years, what are some of the other things that you've done for service?
Okay, I have to think about this, because I definitely have been of service within the mutual support groups. I have been on various committees with that, where I have helped put conventions together and activities together for others in recovery. I sponsor women, so that's a part of my service work. I'm trying to think of. I'm probably not thinking of half of the stuff that I do, you know what I mean? I'm available for people when they call me. I make sure that I'm always available for somebody. I give rides to women when they need it. Yeah. I really try to just be available and know that if I'm being asked and I want to say no, it's probably from a selfish reason.
Yeah.
And that's not, I think, what is wanted of me in this life.
Yeah. And last night we were both at an event together.
Yep.
And, I had brought up it was actually a conversation I'd had with you previous. You know, in church we had talked about 1 John and how, you know, the pastor had told me that day that, you know, whatever we are rich with today, you know, we should share with others. And, you know, I don't have a lot of money. This show doesn't give me much money. But I have a lot of time, you know, and if I can give time to other people and that helps them in some way, you know, I'm benefiting from that. But of course we have to consider, you know, our recovery is selfish. You know, we have to focus on us. We have to be happy. We have to, you know, stay grateful for what we have. And if we give too much, you know, eventually, you know, burnout happens. And, you know, there's a fine line, you know, and I'm learning that myself. You know, I try to do as much as possible all the time. And, you know, sometimes I have to step back and, you know, just realize that, you know, this is about me too, you know. If there's somebody out there right now, you know, on the fence, wondering if it's worth the effort, you know, is there one thing that you may have thought of when you were in the position that might help somebody today?
Yeah. There's some spark that went off in me that realized that I didn't want to die and that there must be a purpose for me. And through the time in recovery, like knowing that I was created for something, like it just can't be an accident that I'm here, and that there was more for me to do. And I just believe that there's a purpose and a job, and that each person that's out there is uniquely qualified to be of service or of help to somebody else. And all of the things that make you think that you're disqualified are the exact things that make you qualified.
Yeah, exactly. You know, all that stuff that we've been through, you know, in the moment, all we ever think about is, you know, that's the worst thing that could happen. But then once we get through it, we can realize that, you know, that's where our value is. You know, those experiences we share can help somebody else. And, you know, the whole idea of this show and the stories shared in the magazine is sharing that experience so people don't feel like they're alone anymore. And, you know, it can be lonely in recovery if we're not reaching out, if we're not doing, you know, attending meetings, if we're not living our life, you know, but getting back out there and enjoying the life that we worked hard to save, you know, I think is important. And without recovery, I wouldn't have a life to enjoy. You know, so that's something that I really try. I don't do it much, you know, honestly, that's one of the things I struggle with myself, you know, doing things that are for me, you know, because I do appreciate service. I do like helping other people. But then we hit walls sometimes, and it just makes me question the work. And, you know, then I get reminders from, you know, a success, and, you know, I get to see that the hard work does pay off. You know, it might not happen now, it might not happen for everybody, but eventually, you know, not giving up, you know, really makes a difference. So what is life like for you today?
My life is awesome today. I'm really busy, but not in a way that I used to be, not in a needing to prove anything to anybody kind of way. I'm busy because I get to choose the things that I attach my energy to. And so I definitely enjoy time spent with people in my life. Like, it's been really good. Like, I wake up in the morning wanting to do the day that I have laid out ahead of me, like, and knowing that it's exactly the day that was designed for me. So I have a freedom in the way I live today. That's awesome. And I laugh a lot. Like, I am all about fun. I'm kind of a jokester.
Yeah.
And anybody who knows me knows that I don't take myself too seriously. And I don't take life, like the things that happen that could be seen as negative and horrible, I don't take those too seriously. I can kind of make light of them. And we live in such a dark time right now with like the rate of overdose deaths that we are having in this whole epidemic. But like, don't get lost in that darkness. Like, if I don't find joy in my own life, like, I'm not going to be able to be available to anybody else. I'll get sucked into that darkness, you know, and finding that balance is what I do every day. Grateful addicts don't use.
Right.
So that's what I do. I fill my cup up with gratitude. And I've found a way to find gratitude even in the things that I don't receive that I want, that I think I want. And it seems to be working out because I have peace and serenity that I never had before.
Yeah.
And I don't have anything to prove anymore. Like, I'm okay if you don't like me.
Yeah.
You know?
So, after 10 years, why do you still work so hard for recovery?
I don't ever want to live in an ungrateful way. I wasted a lot of my life in addiction, not even knowing. Like, I wasted a lot of it in fear and in spaces that were dangerous for myself and unhealthy. And I just live out my gratitude in everything. And recovery is the thing that gave that to me. Like, the things that I did gave me this. And if I don't give that back to somebody else, then how am I helping the next person out of that dark place and into that hope?
Yeah. Yeah. And it may be something that we have to do the rest of our life, you know. And on the flip side, if we don't stop using, it'll be until we die. You know, without necessarily having the rest of our life. And, you know, that's what I find that helps to remind myself, you know, I could slip up at any time. You know, I'm one day away from being, you know, back to where I was.
One bad decision.
Yeah. And, you know, it's not that hard for me to go out and decide to use. It's harder to go out and decide not to use. And like you said, staying grateful for what we've got today, you know, reminds me that that's the choice I want to make, you know. So Nikki, I just want to say thank you for sharing your story today and for going out and helping the next person. You know, there's a lot of people that are reaching out today, I think. I get calls almost every day from people who want help, they want to change their life. And like I said earlier, it might not be that day for that person, but it could be soon. And I want to make sure that I can be there for them. And I'm sure you're the same way. But, you know, I appreciate all you do, helping all the people you do, because it's making this world a better place.
Same to you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Recover Loud, everyone.
Anderson's Auto Repair, locally owned and operated in Sweden, Maine, specializes in all make, all model vehicle diagnosis and repair. Each individual service is backed by our nationwide TechNet 2-year 24,000-mile warranty. Call or stop in to schedule an appointment today. Anderson's Auto, for wherever the road takes you.
I recover loud, I recover loud, I recover loud, I recover loud. Let's go. I'm on a journey to discover the truth. Living life in recovery is lovely. You got the power in you. Surround yourself with positive energy. Judges hitting people with provocative penalties. Need to make a change. Advocate to change the laws. Prove to people that it's not insane. When you stand behind a cause, I'm here to speak about the pain. Recover loud to normalize the disease that's been killing all my friends and my family. The time is now to let it all go and recover loud. The benefit is healthy people, family and friends that never have to overdose ever again, never have to plead out to a lesser offense. I'm proud to say that I recover loud. I never thought I could, but I'm so proud that I discovered how to live my life again, controlling my own destiny. I needed recovery, I still need it desperately. Addiction never defined my identity. I recover loud, here to tell my own story. I recover proud, save a life of like 40. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud. I recover loud, here to tell my own story. I recover proud, save a life of like 40. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud. I recover loud, yeah, I recover loud. I recover loud. I recover loud. I recover loud.